area of national priority, and all the players in the industry, and especially also commercial fleet operators and the commercial part of road safety, and all the players have to be very aware of that. That's the reason why we want to repeat the same slide that we have also seen in the last presentation. Next slide, please. We at Road Safety UAE, we are working together with quite a big number of supporters. You have the current list of supporters on your screen in front of you. We like specifically that we have representatives of many different industries supporting us in the cause of Road Safety UAE. And you also see there, of course, Mixed Telematics and MAN, two of our very, very strong supporters in this specific case. Next slide, please. This is how we work with our supporters. It is very important that we are aligning ourselves with companies and entities who want to support the cause of road safety. In this specific case, commercial road safety, and we're talking today about training management, of course. And this is exactly what you want to see. You see on the left-hand side the topic on our portal that is owned by Mixed Telematics, which talks about commercial land transportation safety in very broad terms. On the right-hand side, you have the example of MAN, who support us on the topic of truck safety. But it is not enough to only have their presence. That's the reason why we're very happy to work both with Mixed Telematics and MAN, who also go out with us out of the virtual world. We're running a lot of joint initiatives like this webinar today. Again, in order to increase awareness for road safety in the UAE and in the region. Next slide, please. I talked about taking things outside of the virtual world and bringing it into the real world. You see a couple of examples here that are either targeted towards our staff in order for our partners to earn themselves the good employer label. This is on the top part of the screen. So you see there office decorations with content related to road safety. We do staff trainings and staff road safety days. On the right-hand side, you see, for example, David Greer, the CEO of Serco. We had a very successful event last week with David and his team. And on the lower part of the screen, you see, as we call it, external stakeholder and touchpoint activation. This should also give an idea that the partners that we're working with, when they're running these kind of activations, going towards the external ecosystem, customers, suppliers, consumers, the press and media, they can earn themselves the label to be a good citizen with respect to road safety. You see a couple of initiatives there, like, for example, we are working very closely with media. We are working with institutions like Kareem, for example, consumer promotions. And this webinar also falls very nicely under this kind of external stakeholder area here. And this will definitely also help all participating entities and the organizers to get a little bit a sharper profile when it comes to be seen as a good citizen. Next slide. The reason why we are so keen in working together with the players in the commercial space is that, unfortunately, in the UAE, we do see a lot of big accidents going to the account of the commercial segment of the road traffic participants. We have witnessed over the years a lot of tragic accidents, and many of those are resulting in quite a heavy toll. Next slide, please. And especially this year was not a good year in this context. We already have two very high-profile accidents in the UAE. One happened on the Emirates Road, the other one happened in Abu Dhabi between two school buses and one public bus. And when you read quotes like speeding, ignoring safety space, inattentive driving, then this is, for me, absolutely shocking. We as the commercial segment of road safety, we have to take over a responsibility, and this brings us to the next slide, Kasim, where we all have to scratch our heads and we have to be very, very aware that our drivers are on the road every day. So they should actually be, role models. They should be sitting in super well-maintained vehicles. They should display the best etiquette when it comes to road safety. So there lies a huge responsibility of the commercial road safety ecosystem when it comes to contribution to road safety overall. This leads us to the next slide. What we did here is we, from our point of view, we summarized the critical issues when it comes to commercial road safety. And we actually laid it out according to the 3 well-known E's of road safety: education, enforcement, and engineering. And specifically when it comes to education, this webinar must be seen in this context here. It is very important to educate all the stakeholders. It's very important to especially operate and educate with fleet operators. This must cascade down to drivers, but it must also cascade down to enforcement officials. We are, with MAN, for example, we're working on a workshop with Abu Dhabi Police to train stakeholders in this specific case, including enforcement officers. So this E, when it comes to education, is very, very important when it comes to commercial road safety. Enforcement, and I broadened it a little bit, including a regulatory framework. When it comes to laws and rules, of course, we have to have the proper laws and rules in place, touching all critical parameters of commercial road safety. For example, maximum driving times, the technical specifications of the vehicles, certification and recertification, but also things that have not been penetrated to the best possible extent. For example, psychological driver profiling. This is something that in other parts of the world gets more and more attention, and this is something also that definitely also needs to be anchored in the proper laws and rules, so that we, for example, have to certify and recertify our drivers, and also add an element of psychological driver profiling to it. The last point on enforcement and regulatory framework is definitely also the holistic enforcement of trained officials. Trained officials goes back to the first point. Of course, we have to train the officials of the enforcement forces, but it's also about that things are holistically enforced. And I think there's also a long way to go for the UAE. This brings us to the last point, engineering. Of course, we talk about safe vehicles. In this context, we really want to point again to the point of regular maintenance, that our commercial vehicles are in fantastic shape, but we also talk about systems and processes. So when we talk about systems and processes, which is a subset of engineering, of course, it's all about having the right fleet management systems in place, for example, telematics, but also have a very, very sound understanding about journey management, which is the very topic of our session today. Having said that, thank you again to the organizers and to the audience, and I'm looking forward to the contributions of the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Now let's hand it over to Ashok from Shell.
Thank you, Augustine. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Quick one. Journey management is one of the pillars. I mean, there are other pillars like driver management, vehicle management, and because most of our suppliers are contractors, we also call contractor management. So for us, it is important that all these get the same weightage. But today we will focus on the journey management part, which we'll explain. If you can move on to next slide, please. Yeah. What I will try and cover in these 10 minutes is, let's see what the journey management is and explain it from our point of view. And in our case, 90% of the exposure is the heavy goods vehicles on the road, but there are also 10% exposure coming from our employees traveling on the road, whether it is to meet the customer or etc. on business travel. So while 90% exposure comes from heavy goods, there is also 10% exposure from the light vehicles. I will try and say how do we manage in both the cases. When is JMP required? That's where it becomes more important. And obviously, what are those key items that need to be addressed in the journey management plan, we will see. Last couple of slides, I will just show it to you how it looks like as a journey management plan, and then take on questions if anything. If I can move to next slide, Kasim. Kasim, can I go to next slide? Yeah, thank you. Okay, what is journey management? I mean, I think you can define different ways, but for us, the journey management is essentially you are doing that plan that you are arriving safely at the destination. Now, whatever may be the reason for your journey, as long as you are able to come safely to the destination and you have planned towards it, it comes in. Now, there are a couple of things like vehicle checks, mornings, make sure you're rested. Those are the things given. They go into probably the vehicle management and the driver management. But from the journey management point of view, we would like to first know how long is the journey. And we normally recommend not more than 2 hours driving. After 2 hours driving, take a short break. But in some cases, we do allow longer terms up to 4 hours, but then you ask half an hour break journey. So fatigue is an important one. And you can't ask someone to stand in the middle of the road somewhere. So you need to plan and say, if I leave from here, I will take a rest at so-and-so rest stop. So where you can have a bit of tea, coffee, or water, fruit, something to use, or you can use toilet facility. So you need to plan your journey, and that's where the fatigue comes into a big important item to plan that journey. In high risk environment, when we say high risk, normally the developing countries or the third world countries where you have got issues related to, because some of the roads are actually passing through the city and you may have to go with a commercial vehicle in such a route. So high risk environments and route planning is extremely important. Most of the countries may also end up with a security risk, and there can be, the world is such today that you have to consider the security risks. And if you are traveling in remote areas, I can give you an example, places like Canada, when you start driving for 6, 7, 8 hours, you won't see a single soul nor anything on the roadside. So you need to plan how do you manage those things. Or maybe in as simple as the Middle East, where you may have to drive into the desert conditions. And then if you are driving at night and then long distances particularly, and what else you need to do additionally, loading, unloading, when you have to do, there are certain times when customers are available, so you need to plan all that. Having done all these planning, should something go wrong, what should be the backup? So that's emergency response plan should be included in the journey management plan. So those are the key elements. Kasim, if I move to the next. Yeah. So we normally insist for whether it is a light vehicle or a heavy goods vehicle, you should use an authorized route only. And it is so strict, at least in Shell, that if the driver has to change the route, even for deviation or anything, something has happened on the road and they are diverted, normally they stop at the next safe stop and inform back to the office saying, I'm not on the regular route, I have been diverted on this, I will be joining back the route at this stage. So you always know at which place the vehicle is and the driver is, should there be anything you need to go to him. On the road journey, before the first time the vehicle goes to deliver the product, you would have gone and done what we call dummy trip and identified the various route hazards on the things. Maybe a bridge at the lower level, there is a school on the side, hospital, or there are interjunctions which are very dangerous. Because we have bigger vehicles, turning radius we need to see. This planning and the site communication is not only done at just on the road, but it includes both loading and discharging site. Even getting into retail station, filling station may itself be a conference. Of course, for every step, what should be the backup, and that is emergency procedure. All this should be covered in the journey management plan. Essentially, the driver, when he leaves, he should be in command of facing any likely changes that may happen. Kasim, next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, I have just listed here some of the hazards that normally you look for, but then these are the trained people who go on their first route to go out and look for these items, and they actually put on a map at what kilometer distance these are located and what action, if any, driver has to do when he reaches that place. A detailed instruction will be done up like this. You may immediately feel this is a lot of work, but believe me, it is not, because when you look, assuming you have 300 customers, 400 customers, 60, 70, 80% of the route remains the same. So you do one for one customer, already for the next customer, you have probably 80% of the information available. You may have to only add on the next portion, but you will be looking for hazards of all this kind. Simultaneously, you will also be looking for where is the rest stop, what facilities are available here, can my driver stay, can he park nicely the vehicle, big tankers have to be parked. So those are the things you check when you go for hazard identification on the road. Kasim, next slide, please. Now this is probably important for me because I need to explain this. For heavy goods vehicle, even if it is 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer distance, a journey management plan is required mandatory in 100% Shell, no issue, no question. But when it comes to light vehicles, where the business sales representatives are going to meet customers, there are certain rules, and these are the rules that we say. We normally say you cannot drive more than continuously 4.5 hours. Ideally, you 2 hours and take a 15 minutes break, or 4.5 hours, then you need to break half an hour. JMP for professional drivers, which is heavy goods, is a mandatory, no question about it. But it is also required in for light vehicles if you are going beyond 4.5 hours. And when I said high-risk countries, which is developing countries, we always insist that you must have a journey management plan. So idea is it is applicable both commercial as well as passenger transport. Kasim, next one. Okay, how do you do it? It is essentially your preparing plan. A lot of work goes actually in that preparing that plan. Once that is done, the second and third steps are simply following it. And if there is any change, come back and report so that you can modify the plan. We go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, we have, I think, first question you need to say, do you really need to do this customer? I mean, it may not be applicable to commercial transport. You have to deliver the product, so you will have to go. But in light vehicles, we do say, can we do it on phone? Can we do it on Skype? Can we do it in some other ways? Is it necessary? You have to go. That's the first question you need to ask. But then once you have to do it, I think you will start developing this. And then if you are going into desert area, then you can't use car. You need to use four-wheel drive. What else do you need? What are the requirements? Are you going to stay overnight? Where you stop? Those are all the plans that you need to put together in a prepared plan. For heavy goods vehicle, once done, normally it's same, but time start may change the stop positions, etc. Next slide, please. Yeah. Second and third steps are fairly simple. I mean, it's already done, so you need to follow the plan. But sometimes you find out that there is easier route, there is more faster route to do, etc. You can come back and report, and then while closing the plan, one can go back and amend the trip for the next time so that you use a simpler and easier way. So there is a closing loop that takes place for every journey management plan that is done, for every journey that is completed. Normally for heavy goods vehicles, when they deliver the product, come back to the scheduler, this is where actually the information is passed on to them saying, okay, great, everything went okay, no change, or there is a change required and they will accommodate that change for the next trip. Kasim, next. Yeah. Now I'm actually flashing out. I don't know how well you can see it on your screen, but hopefully when it is sent out as a pack later, you will be able to. This is essentially showing one example of what the delivery route is and at what kilometer stage, what you need to see, and those are the various hazards on the right hand side they have put together. Now, we haven't made any mandatory way of saying this is the only way you should develop. Each country, each site has developed in its own way. And some of them in the Western world, like UK or America, have already got this on the system so that they can modify it and anybody can access. So not each one develops this plan. One plan for one site accessed by all the hauliers or all the contractors who are traveling. So there are various ways. I'm just going to so show the next few slides. They are examples. Kasim, if you go to the next. Yeah, this is another way of showing at what stage, what is the hazard there and what action you need to do and what is the backup if any required. So these are the ways of, this is another example probably from Philippines, I think. Yeah. So there are different ways. Some of them have got pictures, some of them have got letters, some of them have got it on the system. Next one, please. Yeah, this is actually the customer side. That means a typical filling station where you need to go, where you need to park, where you enter from, where you get out from. All that information is available. Like this, you will have for every customer and every loading point. I think that's essentially what I wanted to show on. If there are any questions, I will take later on. Back to you, Kasim.
Thank you, Ashok, for your presentation. We're going to hand it off to Brody from Mixed Telematics.
Thank you, Kasim, and thank you, Ashok. So today we're just going to explore journey management and the solutions which we've been able to bring to market to our customers. So we'll just skip on to the next slide there, Kasim. So one of the things which we often come across is customers that have very well documented standards, policies, procedures about what they say they do. So they train their drivers, they manage fatigue, they look after the drivers in terms of monitoring their performance with IVMS and using that information to address driver deficiencies. They look after their vehicles in terms of maintenance and servicing. They make sure they have sufficient seat belts for the passengers and that the cargo is restrained accordingly. They also say that they drive on safe roads because they map the road hazards and use road hazard assessment to identify high-risk areas. They make sure that they only travel on those roads during safe times, and they ensure that the roads that they're travelling on are fit for their vehicles, which sounds excellent. But we'll just go to the next slide, Kasim. But the realities we see from crash investigations are where these things are not done. So we have untrained drivers, fatigue drivers, no performance management, etc., etc. And these are leading to fatalities and real incidents. Next slide, thanks. So what can we do to ensure we do what we say we do? Well, we could document the minimum requirements. Then we could build a database of compliances to actually ensure we know if a driver is trained or if a road is safe to travel on. And then, before every journey, we can do a check to make sure that these compliances are in place. Next slide, please. So what does that look like? In a typical customer, they'll have a paper-based journey management plan. So the driver will complete this plan and have it approved before they depart on a journey. The challenge with this is there's no real-time check to ensure that the driver has a driver's license or had training or the vehicle serviced and maintained. And the approval process by the manager, we're unable to verify if the appropriate people have actually approved the journey. After the journey is completed, this piece of paper is then normally filed somewhere and it's not available for future reference. So there are deficiencies with this. Next slide, please. So the question came about, how can we simplify and improve the journey management process for our customers? So we set about a few years ago redefining journey management in terms of the process and the technology which we can use to do that. We ended up consulting industry across oil and gas and field service companies, both upstream and downstream oil and gas, and developed a solution which fits all types of businesses and has the flexibility to be deployed to all types of businesses simply by configuration. And we also decided that the best thing to do is to build that into our core platform, which is already delivering on telematics requirements for customers. So what I wanted to do was just walk through a journey management plan and how that actually looks and what does it mean. So here we have, and these are real screenshots from our system which show how it works. So the first stage is if we conduct a journey, we would come in and build a journey plan so we can capture specific details about that journey. In this case, for this particular deployment, we needed to capture a description, a job ID, a purpose, who was actually creating the plan, and whether we needed to transport dangerous goods, oversized load or oversized vehicle. This is fully customizable depending on the customer's requirements and if we need to make it mandatory for certain fields to be completed. But this is the basis of the journey plan. If we can just skip to the next slide. Thank you, Kasim. So what we found was there are customers that have complex logistics systems which will help with the planning, scheduling and optimization, and then there are those that don't. Or they may have one, but they only use that for their heavy vehicles and not for their light vehicles. So what we needed to incorporate was the ability to define your journey route. In doing this, we also came across the opportunity to improve how we manage road hazards. So here we have an example where the person will select if they want to plan their journey by departure or arrival time. So you might need to be at a customer by a certain time, so you would work by arrival. Or you may start to leave from the office in the morning at a certain time, so you plan by departure. When we actually plan the routes, we use a start and end location, and then we can put many stops or deviations in between, as well as specific stops for things like rest or fuel. Now, the way the road hazard management works is, instead of having a journey management plan for a route, say from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and having the road hazards included in that plan, we actually uncoupled that. So if you plan your route from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, you may pass through 2 particular road hazards, but if you plan your journey from Dubai to Al Ain, you may pass through just one of them. So when you actually build your route, it will identify when you pass through a road hazard and automatically pull that into the plan. Now, the good point about this is the customers that didn't have a planning element in terms of the route can now use this tool to provide an ETA as well. So for this particular trip from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and we forced the route to go inland, not down the E11 towards Abu Dhabi, so it's a longer route, and we can see there it's 2 hours and 56 minutes, and it's 210.9 kilometres long. So we have more information than we previously had. Next slide, please. This is just the same screen with the scroll down. We can see now it's brought in an element of planning in terms of turn-by-turn navigation. So we can see where we depart, any stops or points of interest along the way, and the expected arrival time. Next slide, please. Now I'll skip through passenger allocation because all these options can be turned on or turned off as required. Once we've defined the route, we move into the risk assessment. Some customers, if you're running a daylight operation of logistics, say deliveries to customers, you may not utilise the journey risk assessment. However, if you're conducting ad hoc journeys into unknown environments, then typically most customers would utilise this. The risk assessment is a series of questions that we can ask the driver, such as, how much rest have you had in the last 24 hours? Have you travelled on this particular route before? Are you fit for work? Or any questions like that. And we can define those and define the outcome in terms of risk according to those questions. What we're looking at now is the journey risk assessment screen. We'll just go back one, sorry, thank you. So throughout this process, we've been defining what vehicle we're taking, who's driving it, what route we're travelling on, which road hazards we're going to encounter, the vehicle itself. We have a database which is telling us if it's licensed and inspected. And with the driver risk questionnaire, we determine the driver risk profile. So ultimately, just through this process, we've identified that this would be a high-risk journey. Further to that, we're able to break it down and look at the categories of risk. And we have environment, asset, and people. So we're actually able to identify where the high risk comes from. And here we can see it's people at the bottom. But we'll just quickly work through the different categories and look at the risk. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here we have the environmental risk, the environmental risk, which we're referring to the road and the environment in which we're operating. it's been given a medium risk score, and that's because we're actually driving through a medium risk road hazard along this way. And if you were using this within our system, you would hover over the information. It would tell you what the road hazard is actually, and where it is. The rest of it, there's no security issues, there's no night driving involved, the weather conditions are good phone coverage, and it's good condition road surface. So the rest is low. But due to the medium risk road hazard, we've rated the environmental risk as medium. Next slide, please. Next, we're looking at the asset, so it's the actual vehicle that we're using, and we can see that we didn't select that we're carrying hazardous or dangerous materials. It's not an oversized vehicle or oversized load, so it's also scored low there. Next slide, please. Now we get to the people. So these are the drivers and the passengers. We only have one driver selected on this journey, but we can see that it's come up with 2 issues causing high risk. And the first is the driver does not have the required license to drive the vehicle, nor do they have the required certificates. So this normally on paper-based journey management could have been missed because there was no reference to an actual database that checked if the driver had the required license or certificates. Now, to apply the impact of that, if we look at some of the crash investigations we've done, and in some cases fatalities, it actually turns out that the driver didn't have sufficient training, nor were they qualified to operate the vehicle. However, it was never picked up because we didn't have a well-managed database saying that the driver does or does not have a current license. And the fact that they were doing paper-based journey management meant they never got to check that in real time. There are other items which come into the risk factors for the drivers and the passengers, and we can see things such as first time en route, traffic regulations, is there a backup driver, etc. All these are configurable, and we do adjust them per organisation. Next, please. So then we get the planning element is done at that stage, and according to the risk level, we can use workflow management to route the approval to the appropriate manager. So in most cases, if it's low risk, it can auto-approve and the journey can continue. Or if it's medium or high risk, it may go to a manager or senior manager for approval to accept the risk for the business for that journey to carry on based on the risk level. Then we go into execution management. So paper-based journey management enables you to, just back one slide, sorry, Kasim. Paper-based journey management enables you to plan your journey, but then who is monitoring that and how can they intervene when there's an issue? So here we have automated execution management. So when that journey does start, the system will be checking that the vehicle arrives at the points of interest or the specified stops along the way, and that the journey is actually on time. Just next slide, please. So here, one of the efficiencies we've built in is instead of having a team for the people to watch all the journeys happening to make sure that they're arriving on time and they're safe, we actually manage by exception, and we can monitor just the in-progress journeys, and throughout one screen we can see if any are late or they've deviated or there's high-risk activities. Next slide, please. So what are the results that we've obtained from real customers? We've identified untrained drivers and been able to correct it. We've identified driver rostering was violating their own fatigue policy, and we've been able to correct that. We've found no road hazard data being used and the drivers driving down high-risk roads without knowing it. That's been corrected. We've identified poor asset utilisation, and that's been corrected. In fact, it's been able to help our customers reduce their fleet size by 5% in that case. Customers had no ETAs, no estimated time of arrival. That's been corrected because they're using the system and they're able to generate ETAs. And lastly, there was poor information for drivers. They didn't know the hazards they were going to encounter, they didn't have emergency contact details, they didn't have turn-by-turn instructions, and that's also been corrected. Last slide. So the results for the customers that have implemented this, they've been able to experience a reduction to 0 fatalities because they have full control over the journey planning process and controls in place. They've reduced the overall number of crashes from light through serious, and all of them have been able to demonstrate a return on investment. So it's quite a compelling solution and an excellent outcome that's solving a real world problem for our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Brody. Now, finally, let's hand over to Stefan from MAN for his presentation.
Thank you, Kasim, and hello to everybody who joined in today. Journey management is quite well explained right now, and I'd like to draw your attention to a different focus, which I will reveal in a few seconds. So please go one slide ahead. So what are the topics I'm going to cover? I give you a very short impression who is MAN Truck and Bus, and that has a direct link to the third E Thomas introduced to us today. It's the engineering part. I would say we can proudly claim that we contribute with a good engineering for road safety. Second part is some provoking thoughts about or geared around journey management. This third part is an outlook from an OEM point of view. What could journey management do for road safety and fleet efficiency? And then a very brief summary. I think we're good to go, and go one slide ahead. I said we are proud that we are good engineers if it comes to commercial vehicles, trucks and buses. And for sure we are proud on one of our employees, which is Rudolf Diesel, and invented the diesel engine together with us, 1897. So I think we have a good track record how to make vehicles efficient and safe on the roads. And the next slide, the second part, which I would like to highlight here, is that we're also proud on being the inventor of diesel engine equipped trucks and buses, and 101 years ago we started that journey off. So if you go with our brand forward, you have got a well-engineered truck and bus with all the necessary road safety features which you can imagine. For sure, we are a European-based company, so we are also kind of forced to be always ahead of time in this regard. So the third E, the engineering part, is quite well covered. And Kasim, please, one slide ahead. So some food for thoughts, some provoking thoughts geared around journey management. So one slide, the next slide, please. When you look into fleet management, we find things like telematics. Telematics, from our point of view or understanding, is just a pool of data. You may name it big data, but it doesn't bring you any benefit if you don't utilize on that data. It's like having a swimming pool outside at your villa or your apartment. The water is in, but you don't train in it. You don't use it as a playground for kids, so it's quite useless. So working with the data, that's key. And journey management is a part of it. But if you think, and please click, Kasim, yes, if we focus on word management, that traces me immediately back to my development or HR career. We have got the management cycle, which is plan, do, check, and act. So that's what Brody has already laid out, how you plan, how you do it, how you check, and then how you change and incorporate what you found as findings. Please. But hold on a second. From our point of view, from a man's truck and bus stand point of view, something is really, really missing here, which is the first E, the education. And please, one click. It is intelligent maintenance planning. Maintenance is keeping the shape of the good engineering, and this goes directly under the umbrella of education. A lot of things are not well maintained because people either don't know, are missing an attitude, or think there's no return on investment. And as Brody has laid out, there is a return on investment if you really work with the data which are available. And on the other side, if you think, we've got some good figures from Europe. We're actually going through a kind of an assessment right now since more than 18 months with fleet in Germany. We know that a 1 day downtime or breakdown is 1,000 euros cost or not made profit. So it's 1,000 euros. So if you really take care about your maintenance, increase uptime, you have got a good return on investment, and you always be on the road safety side, so to speak. Okay, let's look into that particular part if it comes to planning and give you a short outlook about how we think that could be done. So one slide, please, the next slide, please. If you look, and now I need 4 clicks, please, Kazim. If we look into commercial vehicles, we have got a lot of data already available. It's about the customer data, locations, histories in repair, etc. We've got usage data, so how the truck is actually used or the commercial vehicle. We've got the vehicle data itself. We can read out trend data, so how the vehicle was driven, life cycle costs, etc. And now, finally, we've got workshop data. So when is the next stop? When should be the next stop planned? Because there's an inspection coming up, a regular scheduled maintenance, etc., etc. So we've got a huge pool of data, but the key is how we connect the lines or the dots here. And please, one slide further. The thing is, we have to do it in a very intelligent way. So we've got a lot of vehicle data, thousands of data generated every second. We have got the journey management part where transport managers, dedicated people plan out journeys, trace them, etc. We've got the workshops, which have also a huge amount of data available, and then the original manufacturer, which is in this case us. And I think to be compliant with road safety and bring it forward, as well as be very efficient, we should use those slack times or slack slots which are in every journey. And if we are starting to utilize those slack times, for example, where a driver has to rest by law, we can utilize on them. And this is what we name intelligent maintenance planning, which should be definitely part of journey management and keeps up then the road safety as well. Next slide, please. The 4 steps we see is, for sure, you need first a fleet management. That's a given, and telematics solutions cover this. Then you need to have a right mindset, which is an education, right? No right mindset, no gain, so to speak. Then the next step, once the mindset is there and in place, you need a smart journey management. Next step would be then intelligent maintenance planning, so that you focus on this more and more once you have got your journey management in order. And the overall aim is having 100% uptime as possible. If you achieve that, which is a good return on investment, which is a good profit for the transport sector or companies, you have got it automatically, ultimately, so to speak, you have got your road safety in shape, in an order, because trucks and buses are better maintained, etc., etc., etc. So we would like to tackle the approach from that end to say, you know, investment in road safety is also a good return investment, so you can earn money by it, investing into road safety. But we would like to first open the minds with regard to what you can earn out of it, and then have this collateral damage, so to speak, to road safety. Okay, next slide, please. So how to work now the whole thing out? We have got so many data available. We know so much about roads and vehicles and all these kinds, but how can we bring it together? So I need the first click, please. As we have seen, a vehicle is on a regular road or route to a client here from Germany driving up to the UK, and we know all the rest areas, the hazard points, etc., etc. In this case, we see we have to take a ferry, and we might have a scheduled stop there because we have to wait, loading time, etc., etc., etc. So we know this journey quite well and all the surroundings. One more click, please. What vehicles are for sure generating are so-called health alerts, which is a part of a telematics solution, or should be a part of a telematics solution, and also then addressing road safety. For example, here's one vehicle on its way, and there's a health alert regarding a turbocharger issue, which is then reported to MAN. And one more click, please. Once this is known that there is an issue, we just look with the systems into the different data packages, so to speak, and see, okay, this vehicle is good to go for the next, let's say, 500 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers. Then there's a breakdown come up due to the turbocharger issue, which is reported. We know that the vehicle will arrive in about, let's say, 3, 4, 5 hours at the terminal to be shipped over to the UK, and has a regular stop there or slack time from 3 hours, as an example. We all know this, and we also know that there is a workshop, an MAN workshop close by. So why not combining these two parts? You know, the slack time, which is anywhere there, and the health alert, and as well having the repair maintenance team just next door, next corner. One more click, please. So what is done is to coordinate with the client and say, listen, you've got this health alert issue. We will have in 300 or 400 kilometers a stop over at the shipping terminal for 3 hours. We can do the repair in 90 minutes. Our workshop is just 5 kilometers away, etc., 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 and we bring it all together, so there is no downtime. We keep then the vehicle in shape, we keep road safety up, so we can bring it all together without interfering anything. It works parallel, and this is what we understand as intelligent maintenance planning, bringing in this focus as well. One slide, the next slide, please. When we sum it up, and please go to the next slide, Kazim, thank you. When we bring it all together and sum it up, what we need those are decisions which are data-driven. The data is provided by telematic systems, as well as we have got one, it's named MAN EcoStyle. Bring that focus into journey management, add the intelligent maintenance planning part to it, which you could easily name digital service core process, so to speak. And we generate then, as best as we can, 100% uptime. And you can all name this as a kind of a digital workshop box. With the data which are provided, we bring it really up to 100% uptime, and which has got a huge impact then on road safety. And this is, for me, the first E. It's all about education, how you deal with it, etc., etc. The middle E, the enforcement E, is only, we have got only it's not really our sphere of influence. We can only support and suggest. But education, which is intelligent maintenance planning, and engineering, which is given by our vehicles anyway, I think those are the two E's we can cover with this approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan, for your presentation. Now, as for the questions, if you have any questions, please type them out and send them over to me. The one that we do have so far, I will go through. I know several people have asked me if this presentation, the presentations and the video will be available. And yes, all the attendees will get an email subsequently with the link to the recording of the webinar and the presentation. So you should get those shortly. The next question was directed towards Brody. Somebody's asking, how easy is it to plot all the risks on the map, and can one share risks done by one user with another?
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. So, yes, absolutely. We actually build a road hazard database, which can have essentially unlimited road hazards. So, whether it's 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000. The other thing which we're catering for there is when you document a road hazard, typically it's there today, but it may not be there in a month or a year, or it may have worsened. So we also set an expiry date, at which time, if it's not reviewed and updated, it will flag as out of date to be reviewed. The other thing which is quite relevant at the moment is when you have multiple organisations working in the same vicinity. Let's say you have 5 companies all working in Dubai, travelling Dubai to Abu Dhabi. There is the ability there to start to share more information between organisations, so that our knowledge on particular hazards in particular locations and maybe at particular times, we can share that information across between the customers if they're willing to do so, so they can all benefit from that.
Thank you very much, Brody. The next question is actually just a general question. I guess it could be posed to both Stefan and Brody. Is it possible to link a telematics system to a SAP system?
Yeah, so I can probably discuss that here. Yes, so the telematics, absolutely. So through APIs, we're open SDKs or whatever it may be, but for us it's definitely APIs. We link the telematics to the SAP, and that can be used for a number of different things. One, that can be used to update your, say you have a new driver join the organisation and that goes into SAP, that can then populate through to your telematics system to create efficiencies. You can use your odometer readings that your telematics is capturing and have that populate back into SAP, and then that can be used for maintenance and scheduling, parts ordering and so on. And there's a myriad of other integrations which are done normally to target business efficiencies, but yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Next one also directed at Brody. Can the system be run without the internet in the middle of a desert?
Okay, great question. So our setup at the moment, we run everything online. The reason is we're also reliant on, well not reliant, but we're benefited by having the real-time information coming from the vehicle in terms of their position, status, speed and performance, which helps us to manage the execution. So we do deal with customers in very remote locations and often, and at a minimum they're typically running a VSAT connection, and we don't require very high bandwidth to be able to support that in those locations. And that's most commonly in exploration teams and those types of applications.
Thank you, Brody. The next one is a general question to all the panelists. Can anybody share the importance or benefits of conducting a pre and a post trip inspections done by the driver, and the importance of having an independent accident investigator for companies with large fleets? So I guess it's a two-part question. First one being the importance of conducting either a pre and a post-trip inspection, and second part being having an independent accident investigator for companies with large fleets.
Sure. So I'm happy just to kick that off. For pre and post-trip inspections, absolutely. When we see, for instance, rollovers for customers, and that's due to tyre failure in conjunction with other things, but tyre failure is the mechanical failure. An inspection can quite often reveal or see that a tyre is not correctly inflated or in poor condition, and as well as other issues with the vehicle. So there is immense value in doing so. I've personally been involved with some crash investigations where a pre-trip inspection may have prevented that because they would have seen the issue. And post-trip, it's the same thing, being able to follow up, more targeted towards the journey they were travelling on. So I travelled along that route and I noticed that there was a new hazard that we were unaware of, or it was something that the next driver should be aware of. And that's very valuable because we can populate that straight back into the hazard database and use it for the future planned journeys. So that caters the pre-trip and post-trip inspection. And the second part to that question, Kasim, apologies.
The second part is the importance of having an independent accident investigator for companies with large fleets.
Yeah. So obviously, having someone objective without relationships within the business or affiliation with the people involved, it can often lead to bias and it can create a lot of issues. An objective third-party incident investigation, in my experience, is a lot more likely to reveal root cause and to allow the failures to be addressed without any type of attempt to cover up or cloud the actual failures. And Thomas or Ashok, you may have some more valuable input there.
Yes, Stefan speaking.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
can contribute with one figure.
Go on, Steph.
Sorry. We know when you introduce a telematic system and you really work with it and you read the data out, interpret them, you can decreased the number of accidents by 29.1%, which is really proven in Europe. 30% less accidents. So I think that's a good figure. And as well, the overspeeding thing, which is definitely an issue here in the Middle East, can be reduced up to 92% if you really mean it, if you really work with it.
Yeah, Stephen, I can only add and definitely say that I think I have shared this in the previous presentation sometime. We used to have per driver on an average of about 40 harsh breakings per month. Now, to me, every harsh braking is a potential incident. Now, if you consider for a fleet of about 240 vehicles and close to 500 drivers in India, they have now run last 3 months in the Indian environment with zero harsh braking. What essentially it tells me is 500 into 30, those many near miss incidents have been eliminated. So yeah, I close them. It's not just by putting telematics, but by giving feedback to the driver so that he can improve. Yes, you can achieve a big improvement in performance.
If it's of interest, I have also some figures which are supporting this. For example, when you look into road safety and in telematics data, which you see every day, we have got this thing called coasting, which means the vehicle is rolling, but it's no gear engaged. And if you look then into how likely it will come to an accident if your vehicle is freewheeling without a control, which is when you have no gear engaged. You see when you really train drivers, when you look into those data, that this is significantly changing. That, for example, well-educated drivers in fleets have got 8 times, 10 times more so-called overrun, which means I use the vehicle momentum in rolling, but have a gear engaged. So actually no fuel consumption, etc., etc. But has got an impact on road safety as well, a huge one, because it is less likely that you have got a road accident because you lose control over your vehicle. So the factor is 8 to 10 better. So I think that's not too bad.
True.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Next question, also Dr. Brody. Can a journey plan be updated in a trip? So I think what they're trying to ask is if once a journey plan has been made, can it be updated while it's in progress, or when are the times that a journey plan can be updated?
Sure, thank you, Kasim. So, yeah, actually in our next release, one of our key features is live updating to the plan. So what we actually are able to do now is if there is a change to the plan, whether it's the route or whatever it may be, then you can make that change on the fly and it will recalculate the risk. If the risk level has changed significantly, i.e. it's graduated to medium or high risk, then it can trigger another workflow to decide whether to continue that journey or stop. So yeah, it wasn't in our first release, but it's something which we're just releasing now.
Cool. Thank you, Brody. Next question is, once a vehicle is in a journey plan, can we see a different icon, or what is the way to differentiate the information on a live tracking module? I guess this
yes.
can be directed at Brody first and then at Stefan afterwards.
Okay. So, yeah, so we actually, within the journey management module, we distinguish only those journeys which have a journey plan. So if we go into the execution management, we're looking at the particular journey. We use smart filters within the list of journeys to identify those that are in progress, in draft, or in approval, or completed stages. So with that very seemingly simple filter process, it's very quick and easy to identify which ones are live and which ones aren't.
Yeah, there's always a visual indicator, I would say, in every serious journey management or telematics module, where you can see what is the state of the vehicle, on time, out of time, etc., etc. Yes, there are always visual indicators.
Thank you. Last question is for Director Brody. After we set up the journey to be completed in, let's say, 2 hours, what will happen if the journey could not be completed in time?
Sure. So we won't just wait until the end of the journey. For every milestone in that journey, we're actually looking at the vehicle position, and we measure in two ways. We measure not only is it at the position at the correct time, but if it also deviates off the given route by greater than the threshold, which is again configurable depending on the environment, then it will create an alert and it will notify those involved with that journey, i.e. the approvers, the drivers and the administrators.
Thank you, Brody, and I think that's all for the questions. So once again, thank you, all of you guys, for your presentations, and thank you for all the people that tuned in. You guys all should be getting an email shortly with a link to download the recording of the webinar, along with the presentation that you guys saw online. If you do have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to contact me. I will be more than happy to help. And again, we will keep you informed about any future seminars or any future webinars that happen in the future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.